The chandeliers dripped light, throwing fractured diamonds across the marble floor. Each one was probably worth more than my entire life. The music was not music, it was a vibration, a heavy bass that pulsed against my ribs beneath the cheap polyester of my uniform. This was a billionaire's playground, a penthouse in Manhattan overlooking Central Park, a view that cost more than a small country. I was just part of the scenery, the hired help, the girl balancing a heavy silver tray of champagne flutes. My feet already ached in the required black heels, and it was only 9:30 in the evening. I just needed to make it another 4 hours. Maybe I could clear $300 if the tips were good. That was a fantasy. It was usually closer to $150. I kept my head down. Rule number 1 in catering, be invisible. Do not make eye contact. Do not speak unless spoken to. Just smile, serve, and disappear. I was good at disappearing. I navigated the sea of silk dresses and tailored tuxedos, the air thick with expensive perfume, and the loud, confident laughter of men who owned the world. But I felt it, a prickle on the back of my neck, the kind of sensation that makes you sure you are being watched. I risked a glance across the room. He was sitting in a high-backed velvet chair, sectioned off in a private alcove, but he was not hiding. The party seemed to revolve around him, people approaching him with nervous energy, laughing too hard at things he said, things I could not hear. He was younger than the other titans of industry, maybe in his late 30s. His suit was midnight black, fitting his broad shoulders perfectly. He held a glass, but he was not drinking. He was watching me. My heart gave a stupid, painful little kick. It was not a look of desire, not the casual way these rich men sometimes looked at the staff. This was cold. It was analytical. His eyes were dark, and they sliced right through the noise, right through the crowd, and pinned me where I stood. I quickly looked away, my hand trembling slightly on the tray. I moved to the other side of the grand hall. I offered champagne to a woman wearing a necklace that looked like frozen stars. She ignored me. I kept moving. 10 minutes passed. I refilled my tray in the kitchen, the clatter of plates a welcome noise compared to the oppressive silence of his stare. When I came back out, I told myself I had imagined it, but I had to. He was still watching me. His gaze had not moved. It was as if he was waiting for something, waiting for me. A shiver, cold and sharp, ran down my spine. I recognized him then, from the whispers in the kitchen, from the hushed tones of the other servers. Rocco D'Angelo. The name meant nothing and everything. The head of the D'Angelo crime family. A ghost story. A boogeyman for the modern age. And he was looking at me. I turned abruptly. Needing to escape that gaze, I focused on my feet, on the precarious balance of 20 champagne flutes. It happened exactly as you always fear it will. A man, tall and loud, his face flushed with alcohol, stumbled backward without looking. He was laughing, telling a story, his arms waving wildly. He was going to crash right into me. I tried to pivot, a desperate, clumsy move. The tray tilted, the glasses shivered, the liquid gold sloshing. I saw it all happening in slow motion, the crash, the broken glass, the spilled champagne soaking his $1,000 suit. I saw myself being fired. I saw my paycheck for the week evaporating. My breath hitched. I closed my eyes for just a second. A hand shot out. It did not grab the man. It grabbed my wrist. The grip was absolute, steel wrapped in warm skin. It did not just stop my fall, it anchored me, pulling me forward one sharp step, away from the collision. The tray steadied. Not a single drop spilled. I opened my eyes. I was standing in front of the velvet chair. I was standing in front of Rocco D'Angelo. He was on his feet now, and he was taller than I thought, a wall of muscle and menace. The drunk guest had frozen, his laughter dying in his throat as he realized who he had almost hit. But Rocco D'Angelo did not look at him. He did not look at the host, who was rushing over with a horrified expression. He only looked at me. The silence in the room was deafening. The orchestra had stopped playing. 500 pairs of eyes were on us. My heart was not beating, it was hammering, a trapped bird against my ribs. His dark eyes searched my face, and for a fleeting moment the coldness was gone, replaced by something I could not name. Relief. No. It was confirmation. Then he spoke. His voice was not loud, but it carried in the dead quiet, a low rumble of gravel and authority. "You are late, wife." The word hung in the air, wife. It did not make sense. The room inhaled as one. I saw the host's jaw drop. The drunk man looked pale, suddenly very sober. I stared at him. At this impossible man. What? The word came out as a whisper, strangled. Wife. I tried to pull my hand free. My mind was screaming. This was a mistake. He had me confused with someone else. A cruel joke. "I am not," I said, my voice shaking but finding a sliver of strength. "I do not know you. Let go of me." His grip on my wrist tightened. It was not painful. Not yet, but it was a promise. A statement of ownership that sent ice water through my veins. He ignored my protest completely. He looked past me, his gaze sweeping the room, dismissing every single person there. "We must be leaving," he announced to the room, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. He tugged my arm gently, urging me to follow him. My feet felt like lead. I was a waitress. I was Lena. I was nobody. I was not his wife. "No?" I tried again, pulling back with more force. This was insane. The stubbornness rose up, hot and fast, a defense mechanism I had relied on my entire life. I would not be dragged anywhere by a man I did not know, Mafia boss or not. He stopped. He turned his head slowly, looking down at me. The coldness was back, but it was mixed with something else, annoyance, and maybe, just maybe, a flash of dark amusement. "Do not make a scene, Lena," he murmured, his voice so low only I could hear it. He knew my name. That single fact shattered my defiance, replacing it with pure, undiluted terror. He knew my name. He tugged again, harder this time. I stumbled after him. He did not release my wrist. He simply kept walking, pulling me through the parting sea of billionaires and socialites. Their whispers followed us, a sharp, hissing sound that echoed the panic in my own head. What was happening? He was a monster, a shadow, and he had just stepped out of the darkness, taken my hand, and claimed me as his. And the most terrifying part, no one in this room, no one with all their money and all their power, dared to stop him. His hand was a steel trap around my wrist. I must have dropped the tray. I vaguely heard the sound of shattering glass and champagne, a distant, thin crash that seemed miles away, muffled by the blood pounding in my ears. The sea of faces blurred. I saw tuxedos and jewels parting, guests scrambling to move aside, their expressions a mix of shock and fear. No one spoke. No one tried to stop him. They just watched as this man, this shadow, pulled me, a nobody waitress, right through the heart of their glittering party. My polyester uniform felt like a costume of shame. My cheap shoes skidded on the polished marble. I tried to wrench my arm free, a pathetic, desperate pull against his unmoving strength. "Let go of me," I hissed, my voice trembling so hard I barely recognized it. "You are making a mistake. I do not know you." He did not slow down. He did not even look at me. Just kept walking, pulling me toward the private elevator. Two men stood there, massive figures in identical black suits, their faces impassive. They looked like statues, except their eyes, their dead, watchful eyes, followed me. One of them pressed the button. The polished brass doors slid open instantly. Rocco D'Angelo pulled me inside, and the two mountains followed. Flanking us, the doors slid shut, encasing us in a small mahogany box. The silence was absolute, suffocating. There was only the faint hum of the elevator descending. I was trapped. I looked at him, really looked at him, my fear warring with a wild, stupid surge of anger. "Who are you? What is this?" He finally turned his head. His dark eyes met mine. Up close, they were not just dark, they were bottomless. There was no warmth in them, only an unsettling calm, an absolute certainty that chilled me far more than any threat could have. "I know exactly who you are, Lena," he said. His voice was quiet, a low vibration in the small space. He knew my name, and he had said it at the party. It hit me again. A physical blow. This was not a mistake. This was not random. The elevator doors opened onto a private garage, sterile and bright under fluorescent lights, a black sedan, sleek and impossibly long, idled silently on the concrete. One of the bodyguards moved ahead and opened the rear door. Rocco did not release my wrist. He pulled me out of the elevator and guided me toward the car. I balked, planting my feet. It was a useless gesture. "Get in the car," he said. It was not a request. "No, you cannot do this." He looked at me for a long second. The air crackled. I felt the gaze of his men on my back. I knew, instinctively, that I had no choice at all. He did not push me. He did not have to. He simply applied a slight, insistent pressure, and my body, overwhelmed by the sheer menace of the situation, folded. I ducked and slid onto the plush leather seat. He followed me, sliding in beside me. He was so close. I could feel the heat radiating from his body, smell the faint, clean scent of expensive soap and something metallic. The door clicked shut, a sound of finality. One of the mountains got in the driver's seat, the other in the passenger seat. The car glided out of the garage and into the New York night. I pressed myself against the door, as far away from him as I could get. My heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. I stared out the window at the city flashing by, the bright lights of Manhattan blurring like watercolor. This was not my world. These lights, these penthouses, these men in bespoke suits who moved with the confidence of predators. This was a movie. This was a nightmare. My world was a fifth-floor walk-up in Brooklyn. My world was the constant smell of garlic and old plumbing in the hallway. My world was a tiny studio apartment with paint peeling off the walls and a radiator that clanged like a hammer every night at 3 a.m. I was not born to this. I was born to the grind. My mother, God rest her soul, had worked her fingers raw cleaning houses for people exactly like the ones at that party. She died when I was 16, worn out and coughing, leaving me with nothing but a pile of medical bills and a warning to never rely on anyone. My father was a ghost, a name I barely knew, gone before I could walk. I had been on my own ever since. Every day was a fight, not a dramatic fight, not a mafia war, but a slow, grinding battle for survival. It was a war fought in dollars and cents, a war against the electric bill, against the rent increase, against the hole in my last pair of decent shoes. Love was a luxury I could not afford. It was a concept from books and songs, something for people who had the time and the energy to spare, people whose lives were not balanced on the edge of a paycheck. I did not have time for dreams. I had time for work. I worked in diners, I stocked shelves, I babysat. Then I found the catering company. It was perfect for someone like me. It was anonymous. You put on the uniform. You became invisible. You could make $200 in one night if you were lucky. The goal was simple. Get the money. Get through the shift. Go home. Do not be seen. Do not be remembered. That was the plan. It had worked for 2 years. I looked at the man beside me, Rocco D'Angelo. He was not invisible. He was the opposite of invisible. He was a black hole, a center of gravity that pulled everything into his orbit. I knew the stories. You could not live in New York, not in my part of it, and not hear the whispers. The D'Angelo family, they were legends, boogeymen. They said he was ruthless, that he had taken over the family business before he was 30 and had cemented his power with cold precision. They said his past was filled with shadows and violence, with rivals who disappeared and plots that secured his iron grip on the city's underworld. He was a king in a dark, brutal kingdom. But there were other whispers, too. The ones that said he was fiercely protective of what was his, that he loved his family, a younger sister and a brother, with a devotion that was almost frightening. He was a monster to his enemies, but a shield to his own. I was not his own, so why me? That stare at the party, it had not been random. He had been watching me, not like a man looks at a woman, but like a hunter tracks his prey. He knew my name. He had been waiting for that drunk to stumble, waiting for the moment to strike, to step in and claim me. That moment, that supposed accident, had been orchestrated. This was not a chance encounter. It was an abduction. The car slowed. We were off the main highway, turning into the quieter, older streets of Brooklyn, not my neighborhood, but one I recognized. This was where the old money lived, the houses set back from the street, hidden behind tall gates. I was being dragged into his world, a world of violence and secrets. He had called me his wife. A cold, hard knot of terror formed in my stomach. I was completely, utterly alone. I had no one to call, no one to look for me. I was a ghost in my own life. And this shadow had just decided to claim me. I looked at his hands, resting calmly on his knee. They were large, capable hands. Hands that could probably break things. Hands that could build empires. Hands that were currently holding my entire life captive. I had to face it. He was sitting right next to me, breathing the same air, this man with a past darker than the river we had just crossed. What secrets was he hiding? And why? Why, in God's name, had he chosen me to be a part of them? I was afraid, more afraid than I had ever been. But deep beneath the fear, beneath the shock, a tiny stubborn ember of my old self, the girl who had survived everything, began to glow. He might have captured me, but I was not going to make it easy for him. I had nothing left to lose, which, I realized with a sudden, cold clarity, might just make me dangerous. The car stopped, the gates, tall and black and spiked, slid open with a heavy, grinding sound. We drove up a circular driveway to a house that was not a house. It was a fortress, a 3-story brownstone, but wider and more imposing than any I had ever seen, its windows dark and watchful. The driver, the mountain of a man, got out and opened my door. Rocco D'Angelo sat still for a second, his dark eyes fixed on the house. "Out," he said. I moved. My legs were stiff, my body numb. He did not take my wrist this time. He did not need to. Then his 2 shadows flanked me, and he walked just behind me. I was a prisoner. I was walked up the stone steps and through a front door that was at least 10 feet tall. The inside was vast and silent. Marble floors, dark wood paneling, a staircase that curved up into shadows. It smelled like old money and furniture polish. It was beautiful, and it was the most terrifying place I had been in my entire life. He led me to a room on the 2nd floor. It was a bedroom larger than my entire apartment, with a king-sized bed, a fireplace, and French doors leading to a small balcony, a prison. "You will stay here," he said. "For how long you cannot keep me here." He turned, and for the first time, his cold expression was touched by something else, impatience. "I can, and I will, until I decide otherwise. There is a guard outside your door. Do not try to leave." He left. The lock clicked. That was 4 days ago. 4 days of pacing the plush carpet. 4 days of eating gourmet food brought on a tray by a silent woman who would not meet my eyes. 4 days of looking at a closet full of clothes, silk and cashmere, that were not mine, but were in my size. He had planned this. He had planned everything. I had not seen him, not once. I was not just a prisoner. I was a prop, stored in a box until he needed me. The anger had started to burn hotter than the fear, that stubborn, stupid part of me, the part that had kept me alive in Brooklyn, refused to just sit and wait. On the 5th day, I tried the door. It was unlocked. My heart hammered. This was a test. The guard was gone from the hallway. I waited for a full minute, listening. Nothing. Just the heavy, oppressive silence of the house. I stepped out. The hallway was long, lined with dark paintings. I walked, my bare feet making no sound on the thick runner. I did not know what I was looking for. A way out, an answer, anything. I found a study. The door was open just a crack. I could smell cigar smoke and leather. I pushed it open. The room was massive, lined with books from floor to ceiling. A huge mahogany desk sat in the center, and he was there. No, he was not. The room was empty, but a single lamp was on, illuminating the desk. I knew I should run back to my room and lock the door. But I moved toward the desk. I was so tired of being scared. I was angry. I deserved to know why my life had been stolen. The desk was immaculate, except for one file left open and a framed photograph. I looked at the photo first. It was Rocco, younger, maybe in his early 20s. He had his arm slung around another young man, both of them laughing, holding cigars. They looked like brothers. They looked happy. Then my eyes moved to the file. It was just a few pages, but a name was printed at the top. Vito Mancini. I scanned the page. Words leaped out. Betrayal. Consigliere. Father's murder. Blood feud. My stomach turned to ice. This was not a business rivalry. This was Shakespearean. This was a war. He was my cousin. I screamed. I spun around, clutching the file to my chest. Rocco D'Angelo stood in the doorway. He was not in a suit. He was wearing black pants and a simple gray shirt that did nothing to hide the muscles in his arms and chest. He looked lethal. He walked toward me slowly. He was not angry. He was something worse. He was disappointed. Curiosity is a dangerous thing, Lena, he said, his voice quiet. You left the door unlocked, I shot back, my voice shaking. You left the guard. You wanted me to find this. He stopped, just a few feet away. A flicker of surprise in his dark eyes. You are smarter than you look. He plucked the file from my hand. He looked at the photo. His face hardened, the brief flash of laughter in the picture evaporating into the cold reality of the man in front of me. Vito Mancini killed my father, Masao, he said flatly. He was my father's most trusted man. My cousin, he betrayed us, tried to wipe us out. He failed, and for 10 years, we have been at war. He wants to destroy everything I have. He wants to take everything I value. He looked up from the photo, and his eyes locked on mine. And at that party, I told 500 of the most influential people in New York that I value you. The realization hit me. I was bait. That wife comment, you did that to draw him out. I did that, he said, stepping closer, to send a message. But you are right. It painted a target on your back, which is why you are here. Why? You have to let me go, I pleaded, the anger vanishing, replaced by cold terror. I'm not part of this. I'm a waitress. I am nobody. He does not want me. He wants you. He wants to hurt me, Rocco corrected. And now, the fastest way to do that is through you. You are not nobody. Lena, not anymore. You are mine. I'm not a thing you can own. Are you not? He was so close I could feel his body heat. You are in my house. You are wearing clothes I bought. You are alive because I am protecting you. Before I could answer, his phone buzzed. He pulled it from his pocket, his eyes never leaving mine. He glanced at the screen. His whole body tensed. Get dressed, he said. Something nice. What, why? We are going out. Out after you just told me I am a target. You are a target, Waik said, his voice like ice. And tonight we are going to give him a clear shot. He was insane. He was using me. He was going to get me killed. But I had no choice. I went back to the room, my hands shaking so badly I could barely zip the black silk dress his silent housekeeper had laid out. An hour later, I was in the back of his sedan. He sat beside me, silent, staring out the window. We drove to Little Italy, to a restaurant that looked unassuming from the outside, just a red awning and a simple wooden door. We were led through the main dining room, which was full of people laughing and eating, to a private table in the back. It was quiet, tense. "Why are we here, Rocco?" I whispered. "This is my territory. My men are everywhere." But Mancini has been getting sloppy, cocky. He thinks he can strike at me anywhere. I am giving him the chance. "You are using me as a shield." "I'm using you as a bait," he corrected, "but I am your shield." He ordered wine. He ordered pasta. I could not eat. Every sound, every clink of a fork, made me jump. "You look terrified," he observed, swirling the red wine in his glass. "I'm terrified you brought me here to be shot at." "I brought you here," he said, leaning forward, his voice a low growl, "to show you what your life is now. There is no going back to your apartment. There is no going back to serving drinks. This is it, and you will learn to live with it." It happened as he finished the sentence. It was not a bomb. It was a spray of gunfire. The front windows of the restaurant exploded inward in a shower of glass and noise. People screamed. Rocco moved faster than I thought was humanly possible. He did not duck. He lunged across the tables, grabbing me and pulled me out of the chair, shielding my body with his own as he threw us both to the floor behind the thick, overturned table. The sound was deafening. Bullets ripped through the plaster, through the tables. I was crushed beneath him, my face pressed into his shoulder. I could smell the wool of his suit and the faint metallic scent of him. He was heavy, solid, an unmoving wall of muscle. His one arm was clamped around my waist, the other over my head, pressing my face into his chest, protecting me. I heard his men shouting, "Return fire!" The car tires squealed outside. Then, silence, a ringing in my ears. People were crying. Rocco did not move for a long time. He was breathing heavily, his chest rising and falling against me. He was listening. "Rocco," one of his men yelled. "He's gone. It was Mancini." Rocco slowly pushed himself up. He looked down at me. His face was a mask of pure, cold fury. His eyes were not human. They were the eyes of a predator. "Are you hurt?" he growled. I shook my head, unable to speak. He stood, pulling me to my feet as if I weighed nothing. He looked me over, his hands checking my arms, my shoulders. He was looking for blood. "You are fine," he stated. Then I saw it, a dark gash on his temple, just at the hairline. Blood was trickling down his face. "You are bleeding," I whispered, my finger lifting automatically. He caught my wrist. His grip was tight. "It is nothing." He looked around the destroyed restaurant, at the terrified patrons, at his men, who were already securing the exits. His eyes were blazing. He had put me in danger. He had used me as bait, and his enemy had taken it. "He knows," Rocco said, his voice terrifyingly soft. "He knows I have you." He looked at me, and I saw the shift. I was not just bait anymore. I was not just a prop. I was the one thing his enemy had successfully targeted. I was a weakness, and Rocco D'Angelo did not tolerate weakness. He protected it, he hid it, he owned it. "You wanted to leave," he said, pulling me toward the back exit. "Rocco, please," I begged. "This is insane. Let me go. I will disappear." He stopped and turned to me in the ruined kitchen. "You will die if I let you go. Do you understand me? Vito just proved it. You are not a waitress anymore. You are not a nobody. You are mine, and he will not stop until he takes you from me." He pulled me out into the alley, into the flashing lights of sirens. He was right. I was trapped. I could not go back. But as I looked at the blood on his temple, at the fury in his eyes, I felt something else, a terrifying, sinking feeling. He had shielded me with his body. He had taken the risk, and he was bleeding for it. He pushed me into the car. "You are never leaving my sight again." My heart was at war. I hated him for destroying my life, but I could not escape the fact that he was the only reason I was still alive. "You are never leaving my sight again." The words echoed in the armored silence of the sedan as we sped away from the sirens. The adrenaline from the shooting was fading, leaving behind a cold, shaking hollowness. I stared at him. He was dabbing at the cut on his temple with a pristine white handkerchief. His jaw set like granite. The linen came away spotted with blood. My blood, no, his blood. He had bled for me. He had used me. And then he had shielded me. The contradiction was making me sick. We returned to the fortress. This time, I was not taken to the guest room. I was taken to a suite of rooms on the 3rd floor, a massive bedroom with its own sitting area, a marble bathroom, and a view of the sprawling, dark gardens. It was beautiful, and it had a connecting door, a door that led directly to his bedroom. That door was never locked. My life, the one I had known, was over. It had evaporated in the gunfire of the restaurant, my tiny Brooklyn apartment, my paycheck-to-paycheck struggle, my invisibility. It was all gone. My old life was a dream I was waking up from, and this was the nightmare. Life shrank to the confines of his house, and then to the confines of his presence. He was true to his word. I did not leave his sight. If he was in his study, I was on a couch by the fireplace, reading a book I could not focus on. If he had meetings with his men, his capos, I was there, a silent ghost in the corner. I learned their faces. I learned their names. Marco, the stoic driver. Paulie, who was too quick to laugh. Antonio, who had eyes as cold as his boss. I ate when he ate. He would have trays brought to his study. He ate with focus, as if refueling a machine. I picked at the food, my appetite gone. "You must eat, Lena," he would say, not looking up from his papers. It was a command, not a concern. I was a prisoner, but my cage had changed. I was no longer a bird in a gilded cage. I was a bird tethered to his wrist, forced to fly where he flew, to land where he landed. The war with Vito Mancini escalated. It was no longer a Cold War fought with whispers and files. It was hot. A car bomb was found under one of the sedans in the driveway, discovered by a security team during a routine morning sweep. Rocco was supposed to take that car to a meeting. I was supposed to have been with him. I stared at the twisted metal after the bomb squad had detonated it safely. I would have been dust. A week later, a warehouse he owned by the docks was burned to the ground, an inferno that lit up the night sky. Rocco watched the news reports on the massive television in his study, his face impassive, but his fist clenching and unclenching at his side. "He's getting desperate," Rocco said to the room, to me, to himself. Desperation makes a man stupid, but it also makes him dangerous. The house became heavier. The number of guards doubled. The silence was thicker, charged with the constant, humming threat of violence. This was not the peace I had dreamed of. My old life, with its clanging radiators and peeling paint, seemed like a sanctuary. This world of silk dresses I now wore and the gourmet food I could not stomach, was a battlefield. And I was the flag everyone was trying to capture. I was the wife. The word he had spoken at the party had become a reality. Not in law, not in love, but in war. I was his. And in his world, that meant I was a target. I could not stand it. The passivity, the waiting, the sheer suffocating terror of being a victim. The girl from Brooklyn, the one who had fought for every scrap, was still inside me, screaming. One afternoon, I found him in the study. "This is not working," when I said. He looked up, his dark eyes sharp. "What is not working?" "This, me, sitting here, waiting for a bullet to find me. You said I am your weakness." "You are," he stated, as if discussing the weather. "Then do not let me be weak," I said, my voice gaining strength. "I am not a doll. I am not some fragile thing you can hide in a room. I have survived my entire life on my own. I will not die because I do not know how to fight back. Teach me." He stared at me for a full minute. The silence was so profound I could hear the ticking of the antique clock on his mantel. I thought he would laugh. I thought he would dismiss me. He stood up. "Come." He led me down, past the kitchen, to a sub-basement I did not know existed. He opened a heavy steel door. It was a shooting range, concrete walls, a single lane. paper targets at the far end. Marco was there, cleaning a weapon. Rocco nodded to him. "Give her your sidearm." Marco looked at me, then at Rocco. His eyebrows raised, but he did unholster his gun and offer it to me. "Handle first." "No," Rocco said. He opened a case on the table. Inside, nestled in velvet, was a smaller, sleeker pistol. It was black and elegant. "This one, it is smaller, easier for your hands." He had already thought of it. My hand trembled as I picked it up. It was heavy, so heavy, cold metal. It felt wrong. It smelled of oil and metal. "You hate it," he observed. "I do," I whispered. "Good, you should. A gun is not a toy. It is a tool. It is the last answer to a question you hope you are never asked." He stood behind me when he did not touch me. Not at first. "Hold it. Feel the weight." I raised it, my arms shaking. "No, both hands." He stepped forward. His body pressed against my back. His heat enveloped me. He placed his larger, calloused hands over mine, correcting my grip. His touch was firm, impersonal, but it sent a jolt through my entire body. I could feel the hard muscles of his chest against my shoulders, his low voice vibrating against my ear. "Your stance is wrong. Spread your feet. Balance. You are not bracing for a punch. You are becoming a stone." He taught me, for hours, how to stand, how to breathe, how to aim, how to squeeze the trigger, not pull it. The first shot was deafening. The kickback slammed my arms, stinging my shoulders. The shot was not even on the paper. Again. I fired again, and again. My arms ached. My ears rang. I hated him. I hated the gun. I hated this life. "You're thinking about the noise," he said, his voice hard. "You are thinking about what it is. Do not think. Just look. See the target. See nothing else. Breathe out. Squeeze." I breathed out. I squeezed. The shot hit the outer ring, a small, perfect hole. A dark, cold thrill shot through me. It was not pleasure. It was not power. It was control. A single, tiny, infinitesimal piece of control. I could do this. I looked at Rocco, and he was not smiling. His face was assessing. He nodded. Once, again. I became a different person. I still sat in his study. I still ate his food, but I was no longer just the bait. I was the bait, learning to bite. And I learned more than just how to shoot. I listened. I watched. He stopped treating me like furniture. He would talk, thinking aloud, pacing his study. "Mancini is planning to hit the shipping containers at the port," he said one night, staring into the fireplace. "He thinks I am moving cash. I am not. But if he hits them, the commission will be angry. It draws too much attention. He is overconfident." His men argued. We hit him back. We hit his restaurants. Burned them like he burned the warehouse. Rocco was considering it. "That is what he wants," I said, though. The room went silent. The three men at the table stared at me as if I had grown a second head. Rocco just turned his head, his dark eyes fixed on me. "Explain?" "He is loud," I said, my heart hammering, but my voice steady. I knew this. I knew men like Vito, all bluster and violence. "He's burning things. He's shooting up restaurants. He wants you to do the same. He wants a street war. He knows you are smarter than that, so he is trying to make you angry enough to be stupid. If you burn his places, the police, the federal agents, they will come down on everyone. He creates chaos, and he hopes to grab power when the smoke clears." Rocco looked at me. He was not just looking, he was seeing. "She is right, Wetnama," he said to his men. The shock on their faces was almost comical. "He's trying to bait me into a war I do not need. No fires. We will handle the port, quietly. We will move the shipment. Let him attack an empty building." He looked at me after they left. "You have a mind for this. Lena, you see the pattern." "I see people," I said quietly. "I know what it looks like when a man is trying too hard." "We are a good team," he said. It was not a question. The thought terrified me. I was starting to think like him. I was starting to see the world through his dark, strategic eyes. The test came 2 weeks later. Rocco had a meeting. A clandestine meeting at a neutral site, a closed art gallery in Chelsea. It was supposed to be with a rival family, trying to broker a truce in the Mancini War. I was with him. I was always with him. The gallery was dark, the paintings on the wall like ghosts in the moonlight. His men, Marco and Polly, secured the perimeter. We were in the main atrium, a massive space with a high glass ceiling. The other family's dawn arrived, an old man named Teresi. He looked tired. They talked for 20 minutes. Teresi was agreeing. He would speak to Mancini. He would tell him to back down. It was all going too smoothly. I felt it again. The same prickle I felt at the party. The feeling of being watched. Rocco was focused on Teresi. He was standing with his back to a large, modern sculpture, a mess of twisted steel. I was watching the sculpture. I was watching the shadows. "Rocco," I said, my voice low. "Not now, Lena." He was shaking the old man's hand. I saw it, a glint of light from the second-floor balcony, reflecting off the glass ceiling, a scope, a sniper. There was no time. Teresi was a distraction. This was Vito. This was an execution. Rocco was turning, smiling, a cold, political smile. "Rocco, down!" I screamed. I did not wait. I did not think. I shoved him. I threw all my weight against his chest. He was a mountain. He stumbled, surprised, and as he fell, the sound of the shot shattered the world. It was not a pistol shot. It was a high-velocity rifle. A cannon. The bullet missed his head by an inch. It struck the marble floor where he had been standing, sending stone chips flying like shrapnel. All hell broke loose. Marco and Polly opened fire, yelling. Teresi's men were screaming, drawing their own weapons. Rocco had pulled me down with him. We were behind a thick marble pedestal. He had his gun out. He was firing at the balcony. "Vito!" he roared, a sound of pure rage. A second shot, a third. They were pinned. I looked at the staircase. The sniper was on the balcony, but Teresi's men, they were not helping. They were moving, forming a circle. "Rocco!" I hissed, grabbing his arm. "It is a trap. Teresi. It is him and Vito. They are not fighting. They are together." He looked at me. He saw the panic, but he saw the truth. The sniper had them pinned from above. Teresi's men were advancing from the front. We were in a kill box. "You saved my life," he breathed, his eyes blazing with a terrifying light. "We need to move," I said, my voice shaking. I had the small pistol from my purse. It felt small, useless. "You are right," he said. "We are a team." He grabbed my hand. "On my signal. We run for the exit. Do not stop. Do not look back." He was not my captor. I was not his prisoner. We were two people in a firefight, and he was my only way out. I was his. He was mine. I hated it. I hated him. But as I looked at his hand, strong and sure, waiting for the signal, I knew I would follow him. I did not have a choice. And the most terrifying part was a small, dark part of me did not want one. I was no longer Lena the waitress. I was Lena, the woman who had just saved the dawn. And I was not sure who I was more afraid of. His voice, a low command. "Now, Lena, run!" He did not have to tell me twice. He shoved me toward the main atrium doors, his body a solid wall behind me, his gun roaring. The gallery, which seconds ago had been a silent tomb, was now a war zone. Bullets ricocheted off marble, the sound a deafening, sharp crack that vibrated in my teeth. The sniper on the balcony was firing, pinning us. "Marco, Polly, cover," Rocco roared. I saw them by the entrance, laying down, suppressing fire. I ran. I had never run like that in my life. It was not a run, it was a clumsy, desperate scramble, my heels skidding on the polished stone, my breath tearing from my lungs in ragged sobs. I felt a bullet whip past my ear. So close I felt the heat of its passage. Rocco was right behind me, firing back, never pausing. He moved with a lethal, terrifying grace, not like a man, but like a predator. He was born for this. I was not. We burst through the front doors. The cold night air hit my face like a slap. Polly had the sedan running. "Get in!" Rocco yelled. Shoving me into the back seat, he piled in after me, just as Polly floored the accelerator. Marco dove into the passenger seat as the car lurched away from the curb. The back window exploded. I screamed, burying my face in Rocco's suit. The car swerved, the tires protesting, but the armored glass held, a spider web of cracks obscuring the world behind us. "They are following!" Polly yelled, his voice tight. "Lose them!" Rocco commanded. He was breathing hard, but his hand was steady as he reloaded his weapon. The ride back to the fortress was a blur of adrenaline and terror. Polly drove like a madman, taking turns that slammed me against Rocco's side. He was a solid, unmoving warmth in the chaos. When we finally crashed through his private gates, they sealed behind us with the heavy finality of a tomb. We stumbled out of the car. The house was lit up, guards swarming the perimeter. "Polly, you are hit," Marco said, his voice flat. I looked. Polly's sleeve was soaked, a dark stain spreading. "It is just a graze," Polly gritted out. "Get the doctor," Rocco ordered a guard. "Now." He grabbed my arm and dragged me inside. He did not speak. His rage was a physical thing, a suffocating presence in the grand foyer. He was silent, which was so much worse than yelling. He had been betrayed. He had been played by Teresi, and it had almost cost him his life. It had almost cost me mine. He took me to his study and slammed the door. "You saved my life," he said. It was not gratitude. It was a statement of fact, and it sounded like an accusation. "They were working together," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Vito and Teresi." "Teresi," Rocco spat the name like poison. "He sat at my father's table. He held me when I was a child." He slammed his fist onto his mahogany desk. The sound made me jump. "He allies with the man who murdered my father. For what? Money power." "Rocco," I said, stepping forward, "how did they know the location? The sniper." He froze. He turned to me, his dark eyes narrowing into slits. The rage was gone, replaced by a cold, reptilian calculation. I had just said the unsayable. The gallery was neutral territory, secure. The only way a sniper could have been in that building, the only way Teresi and Vito could have coordinated an attack, was if someone on the inside had given them the details. The air left the room. We were in a fortress. But what if the traitor was already inside? The house was no longer a safe haven. It was a trap. "Antonio," Rocco said, his voice dangerously soft. "What?" "Antonio. He oversaw the security for the meet. He swept the gallery." He walked to his desk and pressed an intercom. "Send Antonio to my study. Alone." A few minutes later, the cold-eyed capo walked in. "Boss, you wanted to see me?" "The gallery," Rocco said. "You cleared it." "Myself. Every room," Antonio said, his face impassive. "You missed a sniper on the balcony." Antonio's eyes widened, just slightly. "Boss, I checked. It was clean." "You missed him," Rocco repeated, his voice dropping an octave. "Or you let him in." "Rocco," Antonio said, his hand moving slightly, "you cannot be serious. I have been with your family for 20 years. "Which is why you knew Teresi," Rocco said. "You knew he would betray me. You knew he and Vito were aligned." "That is a lie." "Is it?" Rocco was calm, but it was the calm of a hurricane's eye. I watched, my heart in my throat. This was the real Mafia, not the movies. This was loyalty and death, spoken in a quiet room. Before Antonio could answer, before Rocco could pass his judgment, the world exploded. It was not a gunshot. It was a concussion, a bomb. The windows of the study, 3 floors up, bowed inward and shattered, raining glass across the desk, a massive explosion from the ground floor. The gates. They had breached the gates. Simultaneously, gunfire erupted from inside the house. Antonio smiled. "It is over, Rocco." He pulled his gun. Rocco had expected it. He was already moving, diving across the desk, grabbing me and pulling me down with him. He fired twice. Antonio crumpled, his lie confirmed in blood on the carpet. He let them in. Rocco breathed, his voice raw with the pain of the betrayal. He let them all in. The house was a war zone. I could hear shouting, the distinct sound of automatic weapons downstairs. This was it. This was Vito's grand play. He had used Teresi to isolate Rocco, used Antonio to open the gates, and now he was here to end the D'Angelo line. "Maria," Rocco whispered, his face turning pale with a terror I had never seen. "Who?" "My sister. She's on the second floor." He grabbed my arm. "We have to get to her." He kicked open the study door. The hallway was chaos. 2 of Vito's men were coming up the stairs. Rocco engaged them, firing with precision, using the doorframe as cover. He was a warrior. I was just me. But I looked at Antonio's body, at the gun that had fallen from his hand. I did not think. I ran. I grabbed the gun. It was heavy, heavier than the small one Rocco had given me, but I held it with 2 hands. Rocco finished with the men on the stairs. He looked at me, at the gun in my hands. His eyes were blazing. "Good, stay behind me." We moved. We were a team. He was the shield. I was the one following him. We got to the second-floor landing, more gunfire from the foyer. Rocco's men were holding them, but they were outnumbered. "Maria's room is at the end of the hall," he grunted, reloading. We ran. We passed a guest room. The door was open. I saw him. Vito Mancini was not in the fight. He was standing over a crying, terrified girl. Maria, she looked like a younger, softer version of Rocco. "Rocco!" I screamed. Vito turned. He laughed. He grabbed Maria, pulling her in front of him, his gun to her head. "Checkmate, D'Angelo," Vito snarled. "You come 1 step closer. She dies. Then you die." Rocco froze. His face was a mask of agony. He was the Don. He was the leader. But he was a brother. He was helpless. "Let her go, Vito," Rocco said, his voice breaking. "This is between me and you." "It was always between me and you." Vito spat. "Your father. He chose you. He chose a child. He should have chosen me. I gave him everything." "You murdered him?" "I took what was mine," Vito yelled, "and now I take what is yours. First your little sister, then your little waitress." He was looking at me. He was going to kill her. Then he was going to kill us. Rocco was trapped. He could not shoot without hitting his sister. But Vito was not looking at me anymore. He was focused on Rocco. He was savoring his victory. I was not a fighter. I was not a warrior. I was a girl from Brooklyn who had been taught how to shoot. I was the one he was not watching. I raised the gun. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely see the sight. "Breathe out, squeeze," Rocco's voice in my memory. I could not hit Vito. He was shielded by Maria. But his arm, the arm holding the gun to her head, I breathed out. I squeezed. The shot was so loud in the confined hallway, it echoed like a cannon. Vito screamed, a high, inhuman sound. The gun clattered to the floor. My shot had shattered his wrist. Maria Waoi Hatino, in that split second, dropped to the floor, scrambling away. Rocco did not wait. He fired 3 times. 3 perfect shots. Center mass. Vito Mancini, the man who had haunted my life, stared at Rocco. His eyes wide with shock. He looked down at the blood blooming on his chest. He crumpled to the floor. Silence. The gunfire downstairs had stopped. I was shaking. I dropped the gun. It clattered on the hardwood floor. Maria was sobbing against the wall. Rocco did not move. He just stared at Vito's body, then at Antonio's, at the bottom of the stairs, the betrayal, the victory. He turned to me. I thought he would be angry. I thought he would yell. He walked past his crying sister. He walked past his dead rival. He walked right up to me, his face unreadable. He put his hands on my shoulders. His grip was bruising. "You," he whispered. It was a raw, broken sound. I stared at him, tears streaming down my face. I shot him." "You saved her," he said. He looked at Maria, then back at me. "You saved us. You saved my family." He was looking at me, but he was not seeing a waitress. He was not seeing his prisoner. He was seeing his partner. He pulled me against him. His body was tense, vibrating with the aftermath of the fight. He buried his face in my hair. "You are mine, Lena," he breathed. "You are mine." And I knew, in that moment, I was standing in a hallway filled with dead men, my hands smelling of gunpowder, my entire body shaking. This was my life. I looked at Rocco. This was my choice. I could run, now, in the chaos. I could try to disappear. But where would I go? He pulled back, his dark eyes searching mine. He saw the doubt, he saw the fear, he saw the choice hanging in the air. He was a killer. He was a monster. He was the man who had saved me, and the man I had just saved. He was the only thing in my life that felt real. He lowered his head and he kissed me. It was not a gentle kiss. It was not soft. It was hard and desperate and full of pain and relief and possession. It was the kiss of a man who had just faced death and won. It tasted of gunpowder and control and a dark, terrifying promise. This was his real claim, not the words at the party. I kissed him back. I held on to him as if he were the only solid thing in a world that had just shattered. I was terrified. But I was not weak. I was not a waitress. I was his, and I was not going anywhere. That kiss was not the end. It was the beginning. It broke, leaving us both breathing heavily in the ruined hallway, the air thick with the smell of gunpowder and plaster dust. Rocco's hands were still on my shoulders, his grip like steel, his dark eyes searching mine. He looked broken and victorious, a king who had just saved his castle at the cost of its walls. Marco and Polly were there, their faces grim. Polly's arm was in a makeshift sling, but his gun was steady. "Boss," Marco said, his voice low, "it is done. The house is secure." Rocco nodded, his gaze never leaving mine. He pulled me away from the sight of Vito's body, away from the blood. His hand locked around my wrist. He did not take me to my room. He did not take me to his study. He took me up the stairs to his own bedroom, a vast, dark room that smelled of him, of leather and that clean, metallic scent. He pushed me inside and locked the door. He turned to me. The fury of the fight was gone, replaced by a raw, exhausted intensity. "You shot him," he said, his voice flat. "You were trapped. He was going to kill her. He was going to kill you." My voice was a thin whisper. I was shaking, the adrenaline draining away, leaving me cold and sick. "You saved my sister." He walked to a cabinet and poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. He handed one to me. "Drink." It was whiskey. It burned all the way down, but it stopped the shaking in my hands. "I am a monster, Lena," he said quietly, not looking at me, staring instead at the cracked window. "Yes," I whispered, "but you are not the only one in this room." I looked at my hands. They were steady now. I had held a gun. I had aimed. I had fired. I had not saved myself. I had saved him. He turned. "I will not let you be one." That night was the end of the war, but it was the beginning of the siege. Life stabilized, but it was not peace. It was the quiet of a battlefield after the shooting stops. The next few weeks were a blur of repairs. Carpenters and painters moved silently through the house, replacing shattered windows, patching bullet holes in the plaster. The carpets were cleaned, but I still saw the stains. I still woke up, my heart pounding, smelling gunpowder that was not there. I did not go back to the guest suite. The connecting door between our rooms was left open, a silent acknowledgement. I slept in his bed. At first, I would lie rigid on the very edge, my body tense. But the nightmares were terrible. I would wake up screaming, my hands reaching for a gun that was not there. And he would be there. He would pull me against him, his arms a steel cage, his hand stroking my hair. "You are safe. Mia cara," he would murmur, his voice thick with sleep. "I am here. You are safe." I was not safe. I was sleeping next to the most dangerous man in New York. But I was protected. The distinction was sharp and it was everything. I did not forget my past. I could not. Sometimes I would stand on the balcony of his room, looking out over the manicured, fortress-like gardens, and I would think of my tiny Brooklyn apartment. I would think of the clanging radiator, of the sirens in the night, of the freedom I had to walk down the street and be nobody. I had traded that life, a life of poverty and anonymity, for this gilded cage. I could not refuse him. He had bound me to him, not with chains, but with blood. His blood on the temple in the restaurant, Vito's blood on the hallway floor. He had saved my life, and I had saved his. It was a debt that could never be repaid, a bond that was stronger than any legal marriage. Maria, his sister, became my shadow. She was a quiet, gentle girl, probably only 18 or 19 years old. She had her brother's dark eyes, but none of his coldness. She would find me in the library, a room I had adopted as my own. "He is different," she said one afternoon, her hands twisting in her lap. "What do you mean?" I asked, not looking up from my book. "My brother, Rocco. He talks more. He asked me about my classes at the university yesterday. I think he smiled. I had not seen him smile, really smile, since before our father died. She looked at me, her eyes wide and full of a hope that scared me. "It is you. You did this." I wanted to tell her she was wrong. I wanted to tell her that her brother was a killer, that he was incapable of change. But she was not wrong. He was different. The constant, brutal tension that had radiated from him was gone. With Vito dead and Teresi's organization shattered, Rocco's power was absolute. There were no more threats. He was the undisputed king, and the king was softening. He would find me in the library, and instead of working at his own desk, he would sit on the couch with me. "What are you reading?" he asked one evening. "A history of New York." I said. "Why?" "I live here. I thought I should know it." "Tell me about Brooklyn," he said suddenly. I looked at him. "What?" "Your life. Before." I told him. I told him about my mother, about working 2 jobs, about the constant fear of the end of the month, of the rent. I told him about the cold and the loneliness. He did not interrupt. He just watched me, his dark eyes absorbing every word. When I finished, he was silent for a long time. "You were a fighter," he said finally. "I was a survivor," I corrected. "You are more than that," he said, his hand covering mine. "You are a queen." A week later, he took me out. It was the first time I'd left the house since the night of the gallery. I was terrified, but we were not in the sedan. We were in an SUV, surrounded by 3 other identical vehicles. It was a presidential motorcade. He did not take me to Manhattan. He took me to Brooklyn, to my old neighborhood. He stopped in front of a derelict building I recognized. It used to be a community center, but it had been shut down for almost 10 years. Now it was swarming with construction crews. A large sign was posted out front, the Elena D'Angelo Community Clinic. My mother's name was Elena. I turned to him, my throat tight. "Vito's money had to go somewhere," he said simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "He took from these neighborhoods. It is time to give something back." "You did this," I whispered, tears blurring the sign. "No," he said, his voice firm. He turned my face to his. "We did this. You showed me there is more to building an empire than just tearing down your enemies. You must build something too." This was his future. This was his attempt to escape. He was trying to build a bridge between his dark, violent world and a legitimate one I could live in. But the old world was not gone. I knew it. I still had to fight, not just with guns, but with my own heart. I loved this man. I loved his strength, his fierce, terrifying protection. I loved this new, softer side of him, the man who would build a clinic in my mother's name. But I was still his prisoner. He would not let me go. I was not allowed to walk outside the gates alone. He still controlled my entire life. I confronted him that night, after we returned from the clinic. "It is beautiful. Rocco, what you are doing." "It is practical," he said, pouring a glass of wine. "But it is not enough. He paused. What do you mean? It is not enough. This life, I said, motioning around the opulent room, the guards, the armor, the meetings with men who look at you with fear. You build a clinic with one hand, but you still rule this thing with the other. You cannot be both. You cannot be a philanthropist and a mob boss. His face hardened. The softness was gone. The dawn was back. This thing is my family, he said, his voice cold. It is my blood. It is what keeps that clinic safe. It is what keeps you safe. You cannot have one without the other. And what if I do not want it? I cried. What if I just want a life? A real life where we can walk down the street, go to a movie, eat in a restaurant without a wall of bodyguards, without you having to sit with your back to the wall. That life is gone. Lena, it was gone the second I saw you at that party. This is your life. This is our life. So I'm just your possession, a queen in a fortress. He stepped toward me, his eyes blazing. He grabbed my arms. You are not my possession. You are my partner. You are the only person on this earth I trust. You are my strength. You are not my weakness. Lena, you are my armor. He was wrong. I was his weakness. I was the only person who could make him change, and I was the only one who could destroy him, just by asking him to be someone he was not. I had to make a choice. I could fight him, try to force him to leave this life and risk losing him, risk making him weak, or I could accept him, all of him, the monster and the man. I looked at him, at this powerful, dangerous, changing man who loved me, who had built a fortress to keep me safe. I had been fighting to survive my whole life. I was good at it. Okay, Rocco, I whispered, my fight draining away, replaced by a cold, hard resolution. You want this world. You want to be the king. I placed my hand on his chest, over his heart, but a king needs a queen, not a prisoner. If I am to live in this world, I will not be a prop. I will not be a weakness. A slow, dark smile spread across his face, the smile Maria had talked about. It was the smile of a predator who had just found his mate. I would expect nothing less, he said. He kissed me, not with the desperation of the shootout, but with the slow, burning promise of a shared throne. That kiss was the seal. It was the closing of one book and the opening of another, a book written in blood and ink, in shadows and, now, in a fierce, shared light. My decision was made. The fight was not over. It had just changed. I was no longer fighting to escape him. I was fighting to stand beside him. The change was immediate. The next day, he had a meeting in his study with his capos, the men who had once looked through me. I walked in with him. Marco, Polly, and 3 others were already there. They stood as Rocco entered. Their eyes slid to me, and the air in the room chilled with unspoken questions. Lena will be joining us, Rocco said simply. He did not offer an explanation. He did not need to. He sat at the head of his massive desk, and he pulled a chair from the side and placed it directly next to his. Not behind him, not in the corner, beside him. I sat. My heart was a steady, heavy beat. I met the gaze of each man. I saw their assessment, their confusion, their resistance. They talked. They discussed shipping, logistics, the territories left vacant by Teresi and Vito. They talked about money, about percentages, about waste management, which I knew had nothing to do with garbage. I listened. I learned a new language, a language of codes and implications. The commission is demanding a percentage of the new port contract, Paulie said, his frustration clear. They are squeezing us, boss. They think with Vito gone, we are ripe. We are, Rocco said, his hands steepled. We are strong. They mistake our quiet for weakness. Oh, they want a show of force. Antonio's replacement, a hard man named Sal, said, we should remind them who controls the docks. No, I said. The room went dead silent. Sal looked at me as if I'd just spit on his shoes. What did you say? He growled, looking at Rocco. Rocco just looked at me. He did not silence me. He did not defend me. He waited. Go on, Lena, say it. You said it yourself. I said, my voice clear and steady, refusing to shake. They mistake your quiet for weakness. They are trying to bait you, just like Vito did. They want you to make a mess. They want you to start a war so they have an excuse to mediate and take a larger piece. But you are not weak. You are the only one left standing. I turned my gaze to Rocco. You do not show them force. You show them power. You have the port. You have the contracts. You let them have their meeting. You do not show up. Instead, you send them a gift, a very large, very public donation to the police benevolent fund. You become the man who helps the city, not the man who burns it. You make it impossible for them to move against you without looking like the animals, while you look like a pillar of the community. Silence. Sal looked like he was about to explode. Then, Rocco smiled, that slow, dark, predatory smile. She is right. Send the donation, make it public. Double what we discussed. And, Sal, he added, his voice dropping to ice. From now on, when Lena speaks, you will listen. She is the Donna. She speaks with my voice. The men stared, but they nodded. I was not a prisoner. I was not a pet. I was the queen. That was when I truly understood my new life. It was a game of chess, and I had just become his most powerful piece. I began to work with him. The fortress was no longer my prison. It was my office. I had a desk in his study. He trusted me with everything. I saw the books. I saw the network of businesses, the restaurants, the construction companies, the import-export firms. I saw the vast, complicated machine he commanded. And I saw his future. It was about 3 months after the shootout. Rocco was in Manhattan for a meeting, one of the few he attended without me. He felt it was too public, too much risk. I was in his study, going over the accounts for the new clinic, when I found a discrepancy, a very large one. Millions of dollars were being routed from a shell company I recognized as one of his waste management firms, but it was not going to the clinic. I was not afraid of him, not anymore, but I was curious. I went to his private safe, the one hidden behind a painting. He had given me the combination a month ago. In case anything happens to me, he had said, inside was not cash, it was not weapons, it was a binder, a thick leather-bound binder full of blueprints, architectural drawings, and city permits. My heart stopped. It was not one clinic, it was a dozen. It was 2 low-income housing projects. It was a massive, sweeping redevelopment plan for 6 square blocks of my old neighborhood in Brooklyn. It was the Elena D'Angelo project, my mother's name. I sat on the floor of his study, the papers spread around me. I saw the ledgers, the intricate web of transactions. He was not just skimming, he was systematically liquidating his father's old world. He was funneling every single dirty dollar he had, washing it through layers of corporations, and pouring it into this. He was not just building a clinic. He was trying to buy his family's freedom. He was laundering his entire legacy. This was his real secret. This was his grand plan. He was not a mob boss who dabbled in philanthropy. He was a visionary, using the only tools he had ever been given, the tools of violence and fear, to build a new world, a clean one. When he came home that night, I was waiting for him in the study. The binder was on his desk. He stopped in the doorway. He saw the binder. His face did not change, but his eyes, his dark, watchful eyes, tensed. You found it, he said. This is your plan, I whispered, my voice full of an awe that stunned me. This is what you have been doing. All of it. The fighting, the killing. It was all for this. To get to this point. He walked in, unbuttoning his suit jacket. He poured a whiskey. He did not offer me one. My father, he said, his back to me. He was a good man, but he was trapped. He was born into this life, as I was. He saw the rot in it. He wanted out. He wanted to be legitimate. But he was old school. He thought he could do it slowly, one piece at a time. He turned, his face a mask of old pain. Vito saw it as weakness. Teresi saw it as an opportunity. They killed him for it. They killed him for wanting to be clean. I was 30 years old. I inherited a war. I inherited a family on the verge of extinction. I had to be what they were not. I had to be a monster. I had to be ruthless. I had to become the king, or we would all die. He sat in his chair across from me. I won. I won the war, but I was still trapped in his life. I was still the monster. Until that party. Wait, I said understanding. Until you, he corrected. You looked at me, and you were not afraid. You were angry. You were real. You were the first real thing I had seen in 10 years. When you saved Maria, when you stood with me in that hallway, I knew I could not just be the monster. I could not build a future with you. A real future. In a world of blood. He gestured at the binder. This is the way out. Not for me. It is too late for me. I have done things. But it is for Maria, for our family, for our children. Lina. I will use my father's dirty money to build a new name, a name that is not feared in the shadows, but respected in the light. The D'Angelo name will mean something else. It will mean clinics. It will mean homes. It will mean your mother's name, not my father's sins. Tears were streaming down my face. This was the man behind the dawn. A man trying to redeem a legacy, a man trying to build a new kingdom for the woman he had claimed. It is not too late for you, Rocco, I said, walking to him. I knelt by his chair and took his hand, the hand that had held a gun to protect me. We will do this, together. He looked at our joined hands. It is a dangerous path. The other families, they will not like this. They will see it as weakness, just as Vito did. Then let them, I said, my voice hard, echoing the queen I had become. You are not just a boss, Rocco. You are a builder. You are the only one left standing. You do not rule them anymore. You lead them. You show them a new way. The ending was not an ending. It was a beginning. 6 months later, I stood on a podium. The sun was bright. I was not in a fortress. I was in Brooklyn. A large, bright banner waved behind me. The Elena D'Angelo Community Clinic. Grand opening. I was not in a silk dress. I was in a smart, simple suit. I looked out at the crowd. There were politicians. There was the mayor. There were reporters. And there were the people of my old neighborhood, their faces full of hope. Rocco stood beside me. He was not in the shadows. He was in the sun. His hand was on the small of my back. He was my anchor. He was my husband. I stepped up to the microphone. I looked at the crowd. I was not the terrified waitress anymore. I was not the prisoner. My mother, Elena, believed in this neighborhood, I said, my voice carrying over the crowd, clear and strong. She believed that everyone, no matter where they were from, deserved a chance. She believed in family. She believed in building something better. I turned and looked at Rocco, and he was watching me. His dark eyes filled with a love, a pride that was so powerful it took my breath away. He was not a monster. He was just a man. My man. My husband and I continued, are honored to continue her work. This is not just a building. It is a promise. It is the first of many. This is our home, and we are just getting started. The crowd applauded. Rocco took my hand, his grip warm and sure, and he kissed me, right there, in front of the world, in the bright, unforgiving light. The path ahead was still dangerous. The past was not gone, but we had each other. We had our family, and we had a future, one we were building together, brick by brick, out of the ashes of the old world. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to know where you are all tuning in from, so please drop a comment below and let me know where you are listening. It is always amazing to see how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the channel Mafia Boss Stories and give this video a like. And please, if you want to help support this story and help it reach more people, hit that hype button. Your support means everything.